Hello and welcome to this quick discussion between the Verizon Home Internet 5G Gateway and the Verizon Business Internet 5G Gateway. The new Verizon CR200A is right here on the left, this white box. This router was released, router, modem, access point all-in-one was released around October of 2023, more like September. And this one, I'm not sure, the FSN 021VA, I'm not sure when that one came out, but it does seem, I think, to be a second revision of a business modem. For all intents and purposes, they are equal. They're both pretty terrible devices. The significant differences, though, are this one is running a newer firmware and IP pass-through works, bridge mode. This one was updated to coincide with the same GUI interface that this one uses, but runs a slightly older firmware where IP pass-through and bridge mode are broken. And if you don't know the history about Verizon Internet gateways, they do provide IP pass-through on both systems, or bridge mode, which allows you to bring your own router into the configuration and use this as a pure modem. That way, you can pass through the public WAN IP from the modem that Verizon gives you, which is not static, to your router. And you have one layer of network address translation, and you don't have double NAT problems. Unfortunately, the history is muddled with poor firmware updates where old versions of the router have been working and then broken by a forced firmware update, which you can't revert, by the way. And it seems that the current fate of the business router is that no one on support is able to help you for either device. They share the same pool of Indian people who have no idea what they're talking about in regards to Verizon support. They might as well be Chick-fil-A support people. And it's the same for tier 1 and tier 2 for both devices, the same people you talk to. So you're not getting preferential business support from buying the business device. So really, they are equal. And that is to say, I'm sure this one will have a broken firmware update pushed to it in the future, and I'm sure this one will too. Now, you can avoid this by buying your own standalone pure modem or 5G device, such as something from Cradlepoint, InSeaGo, or Peplink. Those devices you can pop a SIM into and activate it. I'm not sure you have that option with the Verizon Home plan. This new router comes with an eSIM. Even though there's a slot for a SIM card, there's not one in there. And with the business gateway, you actually have a physical SIM card. Sorry, please excuse that. A physical SIM card in the device with an accessible port door that you can take out and pop into a different device. Or you can contact Verizon. They'll provide you a physical SIM that you can put into a third-party purchase device like that. Now, I would just like to verify all I've said right now by showing you some speed tests. And I turned the fan on so you don't hear my baby crying in the background. And yes, he's being cared for by my wife right now. So, let's first show, this is a screenshot of the GUI from the home gateway, or maybe it's the business one. Yeah, it says business signal strength. They both look exactly the same as of October 3rd, 2023. And what you can see from this screenshot right here is that my signal strength, let me see if I can zoom this back out to 1 and bring it a little closer even. My signal strength on this device is -95, and for those of you who don't know, it's measured on a scale from about -100 to 0. And zero, not -0, would be the best signal strength. -95 is very poor signal strength. Over -1 or less than -100 would be horrible. This is pretty bad. Anything above 50 or 60 is starting to get into the bad territory from what I've researched. Now, this signal strength was taken at several different points around my house, both inside and outside, between the business and the home gateway, and they were all always between 92 and 98. Even when on my roof of my house, they're about the same signal strength. So it really doesn't matter where you put this, they're pretty resilient. And what that tells me is they just have a horrible antenna to begin with. Because in a standard configuration, it would matter where you put the antenna. Let's go to the next picture. So at first I tested you can see the title here, business stock wired. Excuse me. I tested with the stock settings in a wired configuration. So I hooked up an Ethernet cord in my laptop straight to the 5G gateway immediately out of the box, and these are the speeds I was getting. And the plan I'm paying for is a 100 megabits per second down, and they don't really detail the upload speed. But the salesperson said around 20%, and that's what we're seeing here. Now, this is the first test, and what I was really looking for was what kind of latency and jitter I was going to experience with this connection, because the only two things I really care about are not upload speed not download speed. I don't need a gigabit per second down, which I was paying for through Cox and never got anyways. All I really care about is latency and jitter for gaming, and a decent upload speed for uploading videos and live streaming and those kinds of things. And you can see the median ping on an unloaded network that's without any Bufferbloat router, because this is directly to the 5G gateway. It doesn't have any of my setup in the system. I'm getting 44 milliseconds of ping median. When a download is active, 62 milliseconds median, and when an upload is active, around 60 milliseconds median. So that's around an increased latency of 15 milliseconds or so. And the jitter it increases as well. And you can see these on the box and whisker plot that this test gives you. I really do like this Bufferbloat test by the company Waveform. So you can see when it's unloaded, it's very tight. All the data points of latency are within a very small area, and the median is that fine line within the inner quartile box plot here. What you're seeing is a min, a max, first quartile, third quartile, and the median. At least I'm pretty sure that's how you read these graphs. And even when the download is active, most things concentrate over here, but there are some outliers, of course, over here that expand the range of this quartile box plot in here, so it's a lot bigger. What you want to see is this, even when there are downloads active. And same thing for upload, although it doesn't seem to affect it quite as much as the download. And I'll go through the next charts a little quicker, but I want to make sure we all know how to read these charts. So you can see the download was active. It was saturating my download at around 93 megabits per second, and we got 20 upload. It definitely caps to 100 and caps this to 20, because when I start the test, it's a little bit higher on both, and they settle down to around here. So Verizon knows what's going on. They know what plan you have, and they're going to cap you to what you're paying for. And here's the latency numbers roll up. So 44 millisecond ping, that's really not too bad. When it downloads active, now you're at like 80 total. That's not the best, really. And so let's go to test number 2. I got basically the same results. I'm just flipping back and forth here. You can see the box and whisker plots are around the same. The download speed and upload speed are almost identical, same with the latencies. Here's test number 3 compared to 2. Test number 3, very, very similar. Again, we're seeing median ping times of around the same. Let's go to the next one. Yep, nothing's really changing here. Okay, this is my 5th wired test to the gateway, Now I'll move to wireless. This shouldn't make too much of a difference. I just unplugged Ethernet and used it right next to the gateway, see if anything would change, and it's all around the same. You could see one test here where the download was significantly slower. These were all taken at around 12 noon, by the way. Okay, so those are all the wireless tests. You can pause and go through them if you want. And I believe that's all I really had on this laptop. So let's move to the computer, and I do apologize I'm not doing a screen share because I was doing multiple devices and I was too lazy to share the pictures between them for your convenience. So let's move this back a little bit. Get this to fit real nicely. Oops. Bear with me here. Okay. Let's look at pictures I grabbed for this YouTube video. Okay. So what we're looking at here is just the thumbnail. Great. No. Same thumbnail. All right. Now we get into actual data. Let me bring this a little closer so we can read it. Great. Shouldn't cut anything off now. So, and what we see, this is the business pass-through wired without my bird feeder running. So, as you may or may not know, I have a live stream running continuously to YouTube. And what that's doing is uploading at a rate of 10 megabits per second. This is it in pass-through mode with that load running, which means I'm now using my router with some Bufferbloat handling. Now the bird feeder isn't running, and this is the data we see. The latency is around the same, the download latency is around the same, and the upload latency is around the same as what we saw on the wired laptop. The download speed is lower because I now have a QoS rules running in my router, and same with the upload speed. And the way you set that up is by setting it to around 80% of what you get all the time on an unloaded test. So here we have same exact test, pretty close to the same data. Okay. Here's what I'm seeing when I had my old QoS settings enabled. This was with my Cox internet where I had around 200 megabits per second down and only 5 megabits per second up. And what we notice here is that the latencies are significantly better when the QoS settings are not as restrictive. What I mean not as restrictive, I'm only ever going to get 100 down from Verizon, but I'm getting 20 up. So the download QoS settings that I used to have were capped at 200. I'm never going to hit that. And my upload was capped around 5 because I only ever got 5 up. I was more restricted on the upload side, so this result was kind of interesting. Here's a wired test, and the latency was pretty low. So you can compare this to a couple pictures ago where I had a wired, but this is with no bird feeder running, no constant upload on my network. And what we notice here is that the latency is actually a lot better. There's only an increase of 10 milliseconds on download and upload. Why is that? Here's another wired test with a pass-through. This is with bird feeder running, so a constant upload of 10 megabits per second. These are my new QoS settings where I cap it at around 80 download and 15 upload. Okay, same test number 4, same test number 5, same test number 6. So really decent latency when a download or upload is active through this test. Here are my QoS settings for the business router with the 100 down and 20 up speeds that I was experiencing. You can see my WAN interface that's plugged into the modem is actually set to 18 on upload because I was getting 20 all the time, and my download is set to 80 because I was getting 100 all the time. Here's the stock settings just on this computer with a wired connection. You can see the latency is a bit higher without my router in the loop. Same thing here. Another stock setup without my router in the loop. Here's the consumer internet without my router in the loop. Wired to my computer again. All these tests are wired because they're on my main PC. Upload just horrendous. Same home internet wired, second test. Home internet wired, third test. Home internet wired, fourth test. Home internet wired, fifth test. Here's Cox before I canceled them. First test. You can see my latency is really good. 15 milliseconds of ping. And with the download and upload yes, is with my router in the loop because I just have a modem from Cox. The increased latency is not that bad at all. And the jitter is pretty small, 4 milliseconds too. Excuse me. So this is the Cox. This is a second test from Cox. Extremely good latency from a cable wired connection. And here's what I have running when my router is in the loop, unless I otherwise specified. This is a bird feeder that's uploading, around 5 megabits per second at all times straight to YouTube. So the upload isn't saturated per se, but there is something going on at all times. So all of these charts that I showed had this running when my router was in the loop. I never had it connected to the gateway when it was in wireless mode, and I was doing wireless testing. Because in my wireless testing, I was connected directly to the Wi-Fi from the gateway. In all the wired tests, it was through the router, and this was constantly uploading. Here were my settings on the Cox internet. Upload of 8, because I was seeing at most 10, and download capped to 200, because I was seeing at most 250. Paid $150 for that, by the way, with unlimited data. Here's a test on Cox with a quiet thing. So I shut down every single computer in my house except for the one running this test. I think I maybe have missed the bird feeder on this one. I don't quite remember, but again, the latency is really good from a cable connection. Significantly better, or about twice as good, than the 5G gateway. Here's a second test, exact same. Third test, still very, very good latency. Fourth test, same story here. Fifth test, same story. All right, so that concludes all the speed tests I've done. And this video is 19 minutes long, but I think I'll run through them just one more time. So business pass-through wired, no bird feeder running. Business pass-through wired, no bird feeder running, second test. Business pass-through wired with my old QoS settings. Business pass-through wired 2. So this would be with the bird feeder running and the new QoS settings. Same thing, third test. Business wired, pass-through mode using my router. Bird feeder upload running all the time. Same thing, fourth test, fifth test, sixth test. My QoS settings. Stock wired, so no changes to the gateway. I literally plugged it in and wired in via Ethernet. This is the first one of those. Second one. Here's the consumer stock wired. All I did was turn it on, wire in. This is the first test, second test, third, fourth, fifth. Here's my test from Cox. That's with my router in the loop with the bird feeder live stream running, 5 megabits per second upload at all times. This is with QoS enabled on my router. Second test. Here's the upload information that's running at all times in all tests, unless when I specified that there was not, which is in the case for all of those wireless tests I showed on the other computer, that laptop. QoS settings for my Cox connection. A very quiet network test on the wired Cox internet. Second one of those. Third, fourth, fifth. Okay. And let's go back through the ones on this computer as well. Network strength. Business stock wired. I literally turned on the business router and ran a speed test with no changes. This is what I got. My router is not in the loop. This is the second one of those. Third one, fourth one, fifth one. Here's a test with the wireless. That would mean straight connected to the gateway. My router is not in the loop. And just to clarify, no bird feeder running because that was never connected to the stock configuration. That's only in the loop when the router, my personal one, is connected. So this is the wireless. Number 2, number 3, number 4, number 5, and that's it. So, in conclusion, what can I definitively say about these devices? Well, I would say the support is pretty useless. If you have the option to go for the business router, I suggest you do it, even though the IP pass-through is broken on this device. And let me back up. I said router. It is a gateway, technically. It's an all-in-one device for 5G internet. And I say that because you can have the physical SIM option to upgrade to a third-party modem, like I said earlier, Peplink, whatever. So you're not trapped by Verizon. With this one, you're trapped. And even though it works right now, I bet in the future, and maybe I'll come back to this video and say told you so, they will break IP pass-through or some other feature that you depend on for your business or your home internet, that you will be at the mercy of Verizon support. And let me tell you, you do not want to be in that situation, ever. I would not wish that on my worst enemy. So, get the one that's cheapest. I'm choosing to stick with the business router and not buy a third-party one because IP pass-through mode is a luxury for me right now. This internet is only $25 a month with the unlimited plans that I have through Verizon Business. This one is around $25 a month too if you have the right unlimited plans for Verizon Consumer. They're both about interchangeable. If you're not an internet power user, yes, 100 megabits per second is enough for you no matter what the heck you're doing. Yes, 10 megabits per second upload is enough for you. And the latency is pretty decent. I live 500 meters from the nearest 5G Verizon tower. I'm not in a good signal area, and I still get decent latency for online gaming. So, I'm going to stick with the business router. I'm sending this one back. Maybe if I find a used modem on eBay, I'll upload or upgrade to that, take out my SIM. Now, let me just finish by saying what I mean when IP pass-through is broken. It will pass through the WAN or the public IP address Verizon hands you to my router. I see that, no problem. However, it leaves some misconfiguration in the device because you cannot load certain sites like Verizon, Amazon, random other websites will just refuse to load, and certain websites will be extremely slow. The speed test will show everything is fine, and I cannot access my work VPN. So that's a non-starter for me as I work from home quite frequently. But otherwise, there is a workaround. You can put this into DMZ mode, and you can view Nader Tater's video for how to set up DMZ mode on this modem, and that will open up all ports on the router portion of this gateway, okay, which will then push all the traffic, all of it, to your personal router that's in this loop now, which will let you access Work VPN and other sites. I hope that's helpful to help you choose if you even have the option between home and business. They're both pretty terrible, but they both do what I'm looking for $25. So if you have any questions, let me know. I'll try to answer them. There is some support online through Reddit and the Verizon ISP subreddit, but there's not too many people with these devices still. Anyways, thanks for watching.